Welcome to episode 3 in my DIY 9-volt modular series. It's been a while since the last entry. I've been rather busy, but I have 5 or 6, if you can a mixer, new modules for you guys to be able to build. I'm calling these modules the Slim series because they use board-mounted potentiometers and jacks, eliminating the need for potential panel wiring at the cost of greater surface area. I've done my best to make these as compact as possible. I made this rack in the first place to have a sort of backing track device for my first live performance, which will be later this month. This rack takes a great deal of inspiration from the ciat-lonbarde plum butter and Rollz 5, and 2 of the modules are directly built off of circuitry from them. So now, I'll get into the specs. So here's the first module, called the Rollz. It's based on a circuit from the ciat-lonbarde plum butter. It's basically an astable multivibrator with an amount of inverting amplifier stages that is not 2. In this case, it's 2 sets of 4 and 2 sets of 3. And then you can also connect the bases of the transistors together to create a really interesting cross-modulation effect. And that's the whole reason there's more than 2 stages, is because you can get really weird non-linear oscillations out of it, and it can go from rhythms to weird high-frequency sounds. And then additionally, there's a current sync circuit on each of the multivibrators, which allows you to change the tempo. If they're interconnected, it's kind of different. I think of it like neurons in a brain, like each amplifier stage is a neuron, because it's really weird and really non-linear. And here's what it sounds like. This is just unpatched. But then you can connect them together. And it allows you to get some really interesting pulse patterns. And then depending on which output you connect to, you'll get different, sections of it. So you might get different but related gate signals out of it. And this is more or less the same as the plum butter circuit. The only modification I've done is I've stripped down the current sync circuit because I really only needed 1 CV input. So that's what I did. So the second module is called Gongs. It's another ciat-lonbarde clone, basically. It's a pinged twin T filter and then a pulse delay circuit using the CD4013 D flip-flop chip. So it's 2 of the same thing, it's just on 1 paper circuit. And basically what it does is when you send in a gate input, it won't ping the filter unless this capacitor that's inside has charged up all the way. And then when it's charged up all the way, the first high or gate signal to come through will ping it, and then it'll discharge the capacitor and restart the cycle again. So it creates a delay to the pulse inputs, but it also doesn't cause issues. Like, it's still quantized to what's coming in. So I'll demonstrate it here now. And there's 2 of them. So then you can create a beat of sorts just out of one continuous gate signal. And you can control the rate or the delay time, and then you can control the pitch and the decay. And then, so the modifications that are added are just the common modifications done to the Rollz 5 paper circuit. But then I've also added these two CV outputs, which are buffered parts of that capacitor charge cycle, which gives you a rising edge signal. So I just added a dual op-amp chip there to buffer it. This next module I call the 2+2+2. It's two sawtooth VCOs, two VCA type circuits, and two VCFs. The VCO is a really common type using the CD40-106. I believe it originates from electromusic.com. I'll link to the thread. And then this is based off of, I honestly cannot remember where this specifically comes from. I'll see if I can find it. But it was a envelope generator circuit, like an AR envelope generator circuit, and I breadboarded it, and I put audio frequencies into it, and it worked as like a weird VCA that has like an accent input. And the last VCF is from Electro Music. It was originally for Lunetas, and I'll link to that. It's a pretty good one. And then it's all just sort of pre-patched together, so you have the VCO on this side going into the VCA going into the VCF. And now I'll turn it on. So I'm putting the CV output from the Gongs, the rising edge, into one of the inputs on the VCA type circuit. It's got two inputs on the VCA. I don't really know how to explain it. But you can just sort of get classic synthesizer sounds out of this one. There's not a lot to it. This next one I call the DDogs. This is a from-scratch digital clone of the AV-Dogs from the Plumbutter. I did it in the Mozzie language for Arduino. So you've got, basically, it takes analog inputs, and I'm sending a Rollz in through here, and it puts them through a resonant low-pass filter that is this knob right here, which I erroneously labeled Q when it would be in fact F. This sweeps between 1 and 10 hertz, if I recall correctly. So it's resonating at those super low sub-audio frequencies. So you get cool rhythms out of that when you send gate type signals into it. So you can hear how its response is changing based on the frequency I tune it to, and then I can change the resonance. And then it also takes inputs for CV for the pitch. And I'm just sending another Rollz signal in there. And then you can also modulate the resonance and the filter frequency, which gives you, like, that sort of allows you to create a more interesting pattern if you have it automated like that. And there's just two on each. It just uses the Mozzie stereo output, so they're each is mono. This next one is a snare drum, or a white noise type shaker hi-hat thing, in addition to a 5-step Baby 8 style CV sequencer, and then two Rollz circuits without any current sync, so they're not voltage controlled or anything. I just wanted some slower rolls in the system. So the snare or I'm calling it a snare. It's really not a snare. I based it off of the white noise section of the Korg Monotribe snare drum. I made a few modifications to it, mostly just removing the input conditioning and then adding the noise generator circuit, because Korg didn't include the schematic for that for some reason. So I'll demonstrate how it handles inputs, because it's really interesting, because it's not like, because the original had a Schmidt trigger, so it would take the input and then it would just turn it into a logic input, so you didn't have any dynamics to it. You couldn't do accents or anything like that. But this is a lot more dynamic. So here's what it sounds like with the CV output of the gongs going into it. You can get like riser type effects, and then here's with Rollz output going into it, and then you can mix those to sort of get an interesting pattern. And I mean, I can turn on the gongs. But yeah, I think it's pretty good for getting interesting patterns when you mix CV into it. And then, like I said, this is just a standard Baby 8 style sequencer. You can put clock input in it'll accept inputs from the Rollz, or the outputs from the Rollz, because they're I believe they're around 8 volts, so it's just enough to hit the threshold for it running off of 9 volts. And I guess I'll just demo how putting something with the CV. Wait. That's just the 222 taking some of the CV. And that's all for this rack. I hope that you can get some use out of building these circuits.